As an aspiring filmmaker, exactly a year ago in August 2025, I decided that I should kind of expand my cinematic horizons and watch as many different movies as possible. And it was exactly a year ago, 365 days ago. So since then, I watched 140 movies in just 1 year. So that's my accomplishment. I try to watch very different films from very different decades, genres, of course, countries, from Japan to Italy to the US to Germany, the silent cinema, all that stuff. So here I made my top 10 favorite movies that I watched in the past 365 days. After watching the movie, I usually rank it, I usually give it some kind of score from 1 to 10. And to be honest, there was only one movie that I rated 5, the lowest rated film. The average score seems to be 7 or 8. But this is the top 10 movies that I loved most from the past year. So let's start from number 10. And at number 10, I have Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, released in 1980. And to be honest, I watched this film for the second time because I was exactly 17 years old. I just completed high school when I watched the film first because, it's a cult classic film, probably the most famous horror movie of all time. And most importantly, I just finished reading Stephen King's original novel, The Shining. I kind of had that Stephen King face, which a lot of people have. And I liked the book. I thought it was pretty good. And then I completely hated the Stanley Kubrick's version because it was so different. It felt so different from the book. The book was essentially about a problematic, troubled, but a good man, a good family guy who overcomes his alcoholism, his inner demons, and eventually saves his family from the horrors of the Overlook Hotel. But Stanley Kubrick decided to make a completely different story. So it's not about the story of a struggling writer who tries to be better. The reason why Stephen King dislikes Stanley Kubrick's adaptation so much because Jack Torrance is essentially Stephen King, but Stanley Kubrick just took the original premise, the setting, the Overlook Hotel, the characters, and made his own film. His film was about the horror of living with an abusive husband, with an abusive, raging, alcoholic father, husband, who can snap at you like that at any moment. It was Stanley Kubrick's version is essentially being trapped with an abusive person who can do the most horrible things to you, and that's what the movie is about. The directing style, is fantastic. Stanley Kubrick is just wonderful. So many great scenes. Jack Nicholson, I think, was absolutely brilliant in this film. Every scene with Jack Nicholson's Jack Torrance was filled with so much tension, so much dread. It was honestly incredible. This movie doesn't have a lot of gore or jump screams, as a lot of horror directors think are essential for the experience, but there is none of that. The horror is not that the Overlook Hotel is haunted, that there are demons, there are ghosts and stuff that you can get possessed. The horror is that a simple, ordinary man, ordinary father who might seem normal to other people might be an absolute monster who might just swing an axe and attack you. And I know a lot of people who live through abusive households can relate to this. And this is, I think, the brilliance of The Shining. It doesn't take anything from the original novel, because the original novel is Stephen King's story, and this is Stanley Kubrick's story. Anyway, I think it's probably my favorite horror film, and it takes number 10. At number 9, I have a 1920s film from the Soviet Union. It's Man with a Movie Camera, directed by a absolutely brilliant Ukrainian director, Dziga Vertov. This phrase ahead of its time, it gets thrown around quite a lot, too often I would even say, but Man with a Movie Camera was absolutely ahead of its time. I mean, just look at its fast-paced montage, its various creative editing tricks. I mean, it's not really hard to do this kind of editing if you know, use some modern software, some modern programs to edit. I mean, I can do that as well, but it's because I have a license, so expensive editing software which I purchased. Back in the day, they didn't have that. They had to physically cut the tape. They had to physically put the pieces of this tape together to, you know, and that's how they did montage. That's how they did editing. Thus, we have the word montage. It was a lot of incredible work, and just to think about how much work was put into Man with a Movie Camera, it's just the feeling that I get from watching it is just awe and vertigo. I mean, the movie has a lot of fantastic tricks that the later filmmakers adopted, and it really looks way more recent than the 1920s, to be honest. It was released in 1929. Considering its technical limitations of the late 1920s, especially considering it was made in the Soviet Union, I think it's the most technically impressive film of all time. So at number 9. At number 8, I have a Martin Scorsese's film which inspired Joker, which I'm talking about The King of Comedy with Robert De Niro. I think De Niro is absolutely perfect for this role. And the most important way is that this film, I never felt bored while watching this film. Even when I watch some of my favorite films, there are certain moments that keep dragging on, and I might get a bit bored. This one never felt, any bored. I wasn't bored at all, to be honest. It was just pure thrill, pure entertainment, and I know a lot of cinephiles like categorizing films into something like art and the entertainment, as if these two are different phases of matter, like liquid and solid. But they're not. I mean, I do love art house films, but entertainment is also an important aspect of enjoying the film, and The King of Comedy was absolutely entertaining. So what can I say? My favorite film by Scorsese. I didn't even enjoy Goodfellas all that much. I mean, I think the humor in The King of Comedy was absolutely perfect, absolutely brilliant. You just gotta see it. At number 7, I have the best my favorite samurai film of all time, or should I say it was an anti-samurai film. I mean, this film, I should say it's Harakiri by director Masako Kobayashi. It was released in 1962. This movie deconstructs the whole samurai genre, which is very popular in Japan. The Seven Samurai by Akira Kurosawa is probably the most famous Japanese film of all time, about brave samurai kind of, coming together despite their differences and grievances and defending a small Japanese village from evil bandits, evil raiders who just come and destroy the village, take food, crops, etc., and cause famine. This film attempts to deconstruct this heroic trope by showing that samurai, they essentially become just thoughtless, mindless warriors, essentially serving their master and doing whatever their master orders them to do, which is very different from a typical, honorable image of the samurai. It shows that some samurai can go, despite everything they achieved, can go hungry, homeless, miserable, etc. And should I say anything about the choreography, the fight scenes? I mean, the final fight is absolutely beautiful. I mean, there are almost no cuts in the final fight, and I wish Hollywood directors would learn more from directors like Kobayashi. Yes, I'm looking at you, Christopher Nolan, because let's be honest, the final fight scene in the Odyssey was kind of atrociously edited together, so learn from this one. Number 6, I got It's a Wonderful Life, released in 1946, directed by Frank Capra, and to be honest, I mean, lots of people in the US probably never watched an entirety of this film because it's a classic Christmas flick. It's just, you know, it used to be always on the TV. Families would come together, prepare dinner, and kind of watch this film without actually watching it. I mean, a lot of people know the characters, they know what the story is about. I watched the full film, and honestly, the final scene completely, it made me cry, honestly. It filled me up with so many emotions, and it was a surprisingly very progressive film for being released in the mid 1940s. I mean, it's a story of a compassionate, selfless guy. I mean, played by James Stewart, who was a fantastic, brilliant actor. So James Stewart here plays a compassionate guy who just stands up for his fellow, you know, people of the town. He stands up to a big, ruthless businessman. You know, the businessman who just wants to make more money, who subjugates smaller businesses and makes the people's lives miserable. And James Stewart's character is standing up for his people and against this kind of tyrannical businessman. I thought it was very progressive for the 1940s. So fantastic film, all in all. Number 5, I got my favorite film by Akira Kurosawa, which is Ikiru, released in 1952. I'm not a big fan of Kurosawa. I mean, I watched 4 of his films. I watched Rashomon, and Rashomon was the most terrifying film I've ever seen. It was more terrifying than any horror film because Rashomon shows the horrible extent of misogyny, of patriarchy in medieval Japan. So I mean, Kurosawa does not portray the horrors of misogyny in a positive light. It just shows how it was in medieval Japan, and it was worse than any horror film. But in Ikiru, it takes us to the mid 20th century, right after the Second World War. The movie is extremely realistic. I mean, if you know about bureaucracy, about the bureaucratic government machines, how they essentially spend time, resources without actually doing anything, without actually improving anything, how people spend their entire lives, you know, working in one place, not accomplishing anything, not achieving anything, not feeling any kind of fulfillment. And when you get old, you realize that you completely wasted your life. You wasted it away. You don't get any kind of moral satisfaction from your work. All you did your entire life was working just to make money, and neither your work nor your money, not even people close to you, they don't satisfy you. You essentially wasted your life, and this film is about the horrors of wasting your life and about standing up to this big oppressive system which essentially drains every ounce of joy out of life. And I think looking at modern corporate reality, how young, you know, graduates who get degrees, who essentially do everything that the system demands. I mean, if we look at the system's pipeline, you study well at school, you get into some school, college, university, get a degree, and then get a job. This thing does not work anymore these days. No matter how hard you try, you might not have food, not have anything in life because you don't even have a job. And if you don't have money, in the vast majority of the world, you're essentially completely screwed. So this film, Ikiru, is about standing up to this system, about actually using your power, your strength, your resilience to actually do something good for the people, not for the big boss or the big company or the oppressive government. So that's what makes Ikiru so good. And the ending, when they essentially the government workers promise to improve and do better things, and essentially don't do better, it's extremely, I think it is extremely realistic. So at number 4, I think this is gonna be quite unexpected. You might say it's unexpected. It's last year's K-pop Demon Hunters, directed by Maggie Kang. And honestly, this film is fantastically emotional. I think it touched a lot of people precisely through the character of Rumi. Yes, if you remove the Rumi's character arc with her self-acceptance, with her self-love, with the arcs of other Huntrix girls accepting her eventually, her otherness, it is still a pretty fun flick about, you know, cartoon girls fighting demons to some cool K-pop music. Even if you're not into K-pop music, the songs are still pretty good. Seriously though, the songs are still really good. But Rumi's character arc, I think it is brilliant. I think it can touch absolutely anybody. I mean, imagine you are neurodivergent, like autistic, or have ADHD, and your family never accepted you. Your family wanted you to change, to be normal, to conform to the, to the societal expectations, and you're autistic and you just cannot do that. It's just your brain is wired differently. People might accept you, people might not accept you, or not autism, but I don't know, maybe maybe your parents are immigrants, people of color, and you're kind of in a new country where there is nobody who looks like you, and you're the only person from your country, and you might feel lost. You might feel like you want to blend with the group, be like them, but you're not them. You just need to accept your own otherness, that you are a different person, that your background is different, but it doesn't make you a lesser person. People should accept that. Or maybe you are a member of LGBTQ plus community, maybe you're gay or a transgender, and people just tell you to hide that. Your own family tells you to hide that, or maybe your family might accept that you're gay, but tell you to hide it from the society, or they might not accept it and reject you, disown you. It's honestly, that's why this film works on so many levels. It is essentially a film for everybody. Rumi is a character for everybody, and I don't know anyone who will not get emotional listening to what it sounds like at the end, or watching the absolutely heartbreaking scene with Aunt Celine, when Rumi shouts, "Why can't you love me? Couldn't you love me, all of me?" I think a lot of people have this moment in life with somebody else when you just want to scream that. And that's what makes this film so good, in my opinion. Yeah, it was a quite unexpected addition, but I just couldn't help myself. I just couldn't lower the score just because it's a Sony animated film. So it's here on number 4. So number 3 should be a masterpiece by Alfred Hitchcock, the 1960s Psycho. That's a really great film. The plot twist, the revelation about Norman Bates, I think works absolutely fantastically. I mean, we expect that the plot twist is his mother. We expect something absolutely horrific going on with his mother, but we do not expect that he is his mother and his mother is already dead. I mean, it was very well made, and especially I think for the 1960s, I mean early 1960s, when, I read the story that it wasn't even mandatory to attend the movie theater and watch the film from the beginning before Psycho, because most movies were kind of formulaic comedies that you could start watching at any moment. But Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock specifically demanded that people watch this film from the very beginning, because you are required to follow the story from the very first second, because otherwise you won't understand anything. This is one of the things that Hitchcock changed about the cinema. It essentially created the way we watch movies today, 66 years ago. And of course the soundtrack is brilliant. What can I say? The soundtrack is brilliant. Number 2, I have Eraserhead by David Lynch, released in 1977. I think Eraserhead is such a wonderful experience. I mean, this movie basically embodies what makes cinema great. It embodies what cinema is about as an art form, because can you turn Eraserhead into a play or maybe into a book? I mean, obviously the answer is you cannot. It can only exist in a cinematic form. I mean, David Lynch spent 5 years and $500,000 making this film. I think it's an absolutely fantastic surrealist experience, which I honestly love. What else can I say? Absolutely brilliant. And at number one, I have my favorite film. I know it's kind of cliche choice, but I can't help myself. I'm a cliche person, so it's Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey, 1968 masterpiece. I mean, what can I say? It's absolutely iconic. The dawn of man, the spaceship flying to the moon, to the music of Johannes Strauss. You know, the Blue Danube, the landing on the moon, the Jupiter sequence, the whole Hell sequence, especially the part when Hell starts singing Daisies. It's so iconic. The Stargate sequence, probably my favorite surrealist psychedelic sequence in cinematic history. And of course, the ending, the meaning, how you essentially the movie is you don't just watch the movie and then close your laptop or whatever, turn off your TV. It makes you think about what you just saw. What does the black monolith represent? How are these different elements like the Hell 9000 AI or the primeval humans in Africa, how all of this is connected, and you try to tie it to the end of the film, to this cosmic space baby. And it just makes you think, and it was a technological miracle, of course. So what can I say? Kubrick was a genius, probably my second favorite director after Lynch, of course. Yeah. So that was my top 10 favorite film from the last 365 days. I mean, thanks for watching this video, and hopefully I'll see you again. Hopefully algorithms do their job and spread this video. I really want to share my cinematic experiences with people, and see ya.